MacMaths, let's do some maths today, statistics. Okay, so it's, what is on there? So, it's rubbed off there. I'm better at core mechanics. Anyway, so this is part of the series, it's just the chapter 1. I feel like we've not really started with the maths, but I wanted to do it in completeness. I wanted to go through all of the chapters. But we've not really sort of started with the number work yet and doing some actual proper maths. So I apologise for waffling, and I'll say again, it's not my expertise, statistics, so I'm just going through what I understand, which of course is okay. Okay, so we looked at oh, there's my board again. We looked at random sampling, so that's the the systematic sampling, just the random sampling, and stratified sampling on the last lesson. And today we're looking at the going to look at non-random sampling, which is the quota and the opportunity sampling. Going to start off with opportunity sampling. And opportunity sampling is where you just go stand in a shopping centre with a questionnaire, for instance, and you want to get some responses, so you just sort of stop and interview the first, 100 people that you meet, so to get that in. That's opportunity sampling. And so it's very, it has its advantages. Okay, it's just quick, and it's easy to set up. Okay, you just go and stand there and take that information in, and also it's cheap, isn't it? It's inexpensive would be the proper word used, but it's quick, it's easy, and of course you don't need an advantage of it is that you don't need a sample frame. Not needed. Okay, so that's a big plus with it. So sample frame, if you're doing it in a school and you're doing random sampling, the sample frame is the whole school. So every student has to have a number, doesn't it? If you want to sample from that population, you need to draw lottery numbers. So you've got to give out a number to every student, or draw every name out of a hat. Okay, so that's your sample frame, having some information on every single person. You go into a shopping centre. You don't need to know everyone that's in the shopping centre. You just, as people come past you, you're just asking them whether they'll answer some questions. So there's no sample frame needed. Okay, so that's a big plus. The disadvantage, of course, okay, is that it's probably got some sort of bias, and you've got to sort of trust if it's an actual survey, you've got to trust what people are saying, so there's an honesty or dishonesty maybe attached to it. Okay, so bias, what do I mean by that? Okay, so when I'll look at a couple of examples. When you are in a shopping centre and you're going out and you're getting people's opinion or something, you've all been there when people try and stop you to get some information from you. Okay, it may not be the sample of people that you speak to may not be random, because if you're there at a certain time per day, you're getting a certain type of people. You're getting, some people may not go shopping, because they may do all of the shopping, online nowadays or something like that. So that is a bias. It's not from the general population. It's a certain type of people that are out at a certain time. Okay. If you're out doing it during the day, the people who work nights, might be in bed at that time, and so it's biased towards people who work days and so on. So there's bias attached to that. It's not the same as, giving everyone, in the country a number and then pulling that number out of a hat and then going and asking them their opinion. So you've got this of bias, okay, and that's opportunity sampling. Of course, it doesn't mean always about surveys. So for instance, if you wanted to, find the weight of goldfinches in your garden, or sparrows in your garden, and you set out a net to catch those sparrows, and you just catch the first 100 sparrows that fly into the net, that's opportunity sampling. Okay, for instance, so it's just the first 100, it's not picking a random 100 sparrows from around the country. It's just in one place at one time, and the first 100 into the net, you catch them and you weigh them and so on. okay, and it might be biased towards a particular region and a food supply and so on, the weights of those sparrows, okay. So that's opportunity sampling. And the other one, and I've done it second, it does it the other way around in the book, is quota sampling. Now, as I understand it, it's quota sampling is the same as opportunity sampling. You sort of collect the data in the same way, but when you're doing quota sampling, it's like stratified. You want different categories. Okay, so once you get that data in, you split it into different people. Again, the advantages are all the same. The advantages are, it's quick, it's easy, okay, it's cheap, there's no sample frame, so it's all the same. And the disadvantage, okay, that it's got bias. Okay, so it's the same as opportunity sampling. And what happens with quota sampling as well, if you want to if you're doing a survey but you want people from different age groups to that survey, so the first question may be, what age group are you in, 20 to 30, okay, and you may want 10 people from that age group. So once that age group is full, the next person along, if they say they're between the age of 20 and 30, you've already filled your quota for them. So you say, no, sorry, I don't want your opinion now, and they carry on walking and you ask the next person, okay. A good example of this is one of the questions following opportunity and quota sampling in the exercise. It says, in a research study on the masses of wild deer, and I'm actually sort of looking and I'm reading it now, it says, in a research study on the masses of wild deer in a particular habitat, scientists catch the first 5 male deer they find and the first 5 female deer they find, okay? And the first bit says, what type of sampling is this, and give one advantage, okay? Well, it's quota sampling because they stood there and they caught 10 deer, but they may, and those deer, until they catch them, they don't know whether they're male and female. And they may catch a deer and then find out that it's a female, but go, oh no, we've already got our 5 female, so sorry, that's the phone ringing, it might be my agent. We've already got a female, we've got our 5 female deers, so they release it and they just wait for the next one, and if it's another female they release it and they wait for the next one, and then it's a male until they've got their quotas full. So that is quota sampling, and it says give one advantage of this. Advantage because it's just quick and easy and they don't need to know all of the things. But a disadvantage, of course, is that it's biased, because certain types of animals, say they're doing a survey and they want to look at the weights of male deer, well, or female deer, so only certain females may come out at a certain time. So the big sort of mothers, strong mothers that have their children with them, and they're trying to protect the children, their calves or whatever, they only may come out, at dusk or something like that at different times. So different types of deer may come out at different times and so on, okay, or ages of deer might come out at different times, so that the survey may be biased. It does say suggest 2 improvements scientists could do with the sampling method, okay, so they could get more deer, and come out at different times or go to slightly different places within the habitat. So all things like that would be good suggestions to say, to try to get a more random sample, catch those deer at different times in slightly different places and so on, okay. So that's opportunity sampling and quota sampling. It's just as people come along, or as people turn up, or as deer run past you, you catch them, or sparrows in the net, or people in a shopping centre, and it's just taking the opportunity to speak to them, and then if you want to split that data up into its sort of certain characteristics, like ages or gender or so on, then it's called quota sampling, okay. And you may collect 100 people and then speak to 100 people, get all the information, then after that sit down and go, right, we want, and sort it out into different quotas, okay. So that is opportunity sampling and quota sampling, and that's seen as non-random, okay. And with that, just the types of data as well, and that is just from GCSE, so just going over that, I'm sure you know it, okay. So the 2 types of data or the two main types are quantitative, yeah, spell that one right, and qualitative data. Okay, so two types of data, and quantitative is about quantities. They're the ones we want in this survey mainly, in this topic mainly, is quantities, numbers in other words, and qualitative is qualities. Qualities, okay, so like features, if you like. So let's take a car. There's our car. So quantitative data about the car, it may be the number of wheels it has. I know cars 4 wheels, but you get 3-wheel cars, okay, because it's a number. It's 4, isn't it? Okay, the engine size. Okay, so they come in, don't they, like 1 litre or 1.4 litre. It's a number. Okay, so things like that any to do with numbers, quantities, the number of doors it has. Okay, so they talk about 5 doors, the 4 sort of doors and the boot, or the 3 doors, 2 front doors and the boot, 3 doors, and so on. Okay, so these are all sort of numbers. Okay, qualities are the qualities of the car, so that's data as well, like the colour. Does it have air conditioning? You know, does it have a sunroof, and so on? What, you know, what are the types of wheels like, and so on. So, you know, those things are what we call qualities, colour and so on. You know, what does it smell like? I don't know whether that's it's just silly, isn't it? You don't buy a car on its smell. Okay, so the two types, and of course, you know this as well, when we're dealing with numbers, okay, there's 2 types, isn't there, that we look at, and you know this as well, and that is discrete data and continuous. And a reminder of those. So discrete data is when it can take only certain values. In other words, 1, 2, 3, 4. It can only have 4 wheels, or 3 wheels. It can't have 3.2 wheels. It can't take any value. Okay. The engine size would be discrete because it can only be a certain size, can't it? Either 1 litre or 1.1 litre or 1.2 litre. Now I know you might be going, hang on, isn't that continuous? No, because it can't be 1.11 or 1.109, is it? It's only certain sizes. Okay, so it doesn't have to be whole numbers, it just has to be certain sizes. A good example of that is like shoe size. You know, you're a 9, you're a 9.5, you're a 10, you're a 10.5. So it has half values because there are absolute values. Okay, but you don't get a shoe size that is 9 7/8, do you? Okay, that doesn't happen. So it can't be, you know, a 9.6372 shoe size. It doesn't happen. Okay, so your foot size, the actual size of your foot, is continuous though, unlike your shoe is discrete. So feet are all different lengths, and continuous data is all measurements. Okay, so an orange, we might say that it looks more like an apple, that, doesn't it? Actually, we might say that an apple is 63 grams. Well, it's not going to be exactly 63 grams, isn't it? Is it? It's going to be 63 grams rounded off to the nearest gram. Okay, so it might have been 63.4 grams, mightn't it? Actually, okay, but it was rounded down to 63 to the nearest gram. But then, of course, it's not 63.4 because it's 63.4 rounded off to the nearest tenth of a gram. Okay, so that might have been 63.39. That would have rounded off to 63.4 grams, but it's not 63.39, is it? It's 63.39 rounded off to 2 decimal places, and so on and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so any measurement of any number that is a measurement, you know, that is weight, distance, time, is rounded off to the nearest. Okay, and that is what we call continuous data. So with discrete data, because it can only take certain values, you tend to see them, don't they? When they talk about like goals scored, they might go 30 to 34, 35 goals to 40, 35 goals to 39, 40, and it put into groups like this, okay? But with continuous data, when they're talking about weights of apples and so on, they always say the weight, don't they? So greater than 30 grams but less or equal to 40 grams, greater than 40 but less or equal to 50 grams, because within that the weight of the apple can take any value at all between 30 and 40, any value, whereas the goals scored between 30 and 34 can only be certain values like 31, 32, 33 or 34, okay, or 30. Okay, so it can only take exact values, can take any value within the group. That's what continuous data is compared to discrete data. Okay, so we've looked at, over this topic, we've looked at just the types of data. It's just setting you up really before we do any maths, just so that you know how to describe what we're dealing with and the sampling methods. So there's not a lot of marks in it on the exam, but do learn the advantages and disadvantages of the random sampling techniques and the non-random sampling techniques that we've looked at today. So that is, the random sampling, sometimes called lottery sampling, the systematic sampling and the stratified sampling, and then the non-random ones that we did, which was quota and opportunity sampling. So learn those. Make sure you know your quantitative and qualitative. I'm sure you do. The quantities, numbers, the qualities, features of a car or a bike or whatever. And then the two different types of quantitative data, discrete data and continuous data. Okay, discrete data was more simple to deal with because it's exact values. That used to be, finding the mean of discrete data at GCSE was just like grade D, wasn't it, or the old grade 3. But as soon as you were doing the estimated mean using continuous data, it went up to a grade 4 or a grade C in the new money. Okay, all right, and that's basically, I don't really need to go through the questions. All the answers are in the book. If it asks to give for 1C and 1D, if it asks you to give reasons or to give advantages or disadvantages, it gives those advantages and disadvantages in the answer. So you don't need me to go through them on this. You can do those and look up the answers yourself. Okay, because there's really sort of no working out to do apart from just some means and stuff. All right. Okay. Thank you very much. Over and out.